Hello and welcome back to the Watford Way, where today we are talking transfers. I'm delighted to be joined once again by Ned West from the Yellow Squared podcast. Ned, you had your debut last week. You're making your second
Yeah.
appearance today. How has your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. Good. Very interesting. Keeping up with lots of transfer news. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on again. I'm pleased I could deliver last week enough to warrant a second visit.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, we can certainly say, Ned, it's been a lot less chaotic than your last appearance
Yeah.
here on the channel. I feel like it's all quietened down now around Tom Cleverley, which is always good to see after that statement from Gino Pozzo. Lots to discuss today, Ned. Of course, there's been outgoings, incomings, and rumours in between as well. We'll start very quickly with the Gianluca Nani interview
Mm.
with Andrew French. I know you've not read anything yourself by that, but for him to come speak to Andrew French, I think that's a positive move.
Yeah.
Although, if you have read any of the stories that Andrew French has put out, they don't make for very good reading. Nani, for me, says a lot, but doesn't really say anything in doing so. So it was an interesting read. If you haven't already, go and check that out via the Watford Observer. But for me, Ned, he just said, very basic quotes. He basically said the January transfer window is shorter than the summer. We know that. He doesn't need to state that to us.
Mm.
For me, just making a few excuses. What are your thoughts on Gianluca Nani generally at Watford since he rejoined the club? Of course, he's working between Udinese and Watford at the moment. Is that for you beneficial, or does that hinder us sometimes in kind of the transfer window?
Uh, well, it's a mix of both, isn't it? Really, I think because he's obviously at Udinese, there's always a chance then that there will be a signing, and with them being so linked together, it massively saves time, I can assume. And when we need an emergency players to come in on short notice, and the pool of players we're looking in isn't looking good. It's always good to be able to just go to Udinese and go, yeah, we know we've got this player coming in, we can move him to Watford. It's a bit like the goalkeeper that's just come in. But then again, you can look at that negatively as well. I feel like sometimes that restricts us because I feel like they don't look elsewhere. They are just looking through Udinese, and then you know recently in recent years it's a bit like we're feeding off the scraps that Udinese offer us because we're probably not in the greatest of lights under the ownership.
It's strange also, Ned, that Watford don't target the lower English leagues. We see other clubs do it in the Championship to great effect,
Yeah.
and Watford always seems to be bringing in players, from various countries around Europe and even further afield than Europe as well. Is that something that you think we could work on as well? Targeting, League One especially has some great players.
Yeah, no, it is. I've said for a while on the podcast that the players that tend to develop best go out on loan from us in League One, League Two, even Scotland. So it's definitely countries close to home that um, breed players that are good for this league because they grow up and they're playing when they're younger in physical leagues, and naturally League One is just a step below the Championship. And there are plenty of quality young players there that many Championship sides pick up all the time. The likes of Richard Kone, those sorts of players. They're young, and we really should be all over it. I think I'm a massive fan of Hector Cipriano from Peterborough, and it looks like we're going to miss out on him, and he's going to go to Swansea, which is ultimately very frustrating because we should be all over those sorts of transfers, and I feel like we've got a bit more pulling power than somebody like Swansea.
It's a shame as well because I think in one of the recent at our place events that Watford do on occasion, I think Gianluca Nani actually said that we had targeted Cipriano, I think in the last
Yeah,
three transfer windows, which is, yeah, as you say, so frustrating. Obviously, Swansea City recently getting that Matt Grimes money from
yeah,
Coventry City. So, yeah, I'm sure Cipriano, if he joins them, will be a good replacement. Shifting our focus now to incomings, Ned, and we've
Yeah.
seen one join the club today. Egil Selvik, the Norwegian goalkeeper, signing a 3.5 year deal from Udinese.
Mm.
Talk to me a bit about your thoughts and feelings on that deal. As evident, as soon as Batman got injured, we needed a new
Yeah.
goalkeeper. Jonathan Bond has been playing through injury in recent weeks as well. Is that the right deal for you, Selvik joining from Udinese?
Well, I saw the interview that Cleverly put out today. He seems to be the goalkeeper that Cleverly liked. Um, the attributes that he possesses are, command of area. He's okay with his feet, and that's what we need really. Somebody that can step off the line and control the box. It's a signing at Cleverly. Well, he says he wants, and I believe Cleverly more than I believe people high up at the club. And if he says he wants him, then I believe he's a good fit. We've needed a goalkeeper for a while now, and he was quite hesitant in the interview to answer what would happen as Batman came back from injury. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But as far as the actual transfer goes, it's another bit of interesting business, isn't it? Udinese signed him 3 weeks ago, and I
Yes.
thought he'd be on a loan to Watford, and then sort of like an obligation to buy for the summer, or we'd sign him in the summer. But no, that we bought him outright 3 weeks after Udinese, so it's another bit of sneaky business from Watford and Udinese.
Well, that's it. The loan was initially reported, and then obviously, as it transpired, it
Yeah,
turns out he's signed for Watford on a permanent transfer. I'd love to know what the fee was potentially to Udinese as well.
yeah,
Yeah, as you say, Ned, lots to dive into. As members of the public, we aren't privy to that information. So yeah, Egil Selvik, an interesting one. His statistics and high claims, especially, and the command of his area look really good and
yeah,
much better than Backman. As I said in the last video I did in the channel, it's just going to be interesting to see how it transpires moving from a league in Norway with much lower quality to obviously a high quality league in the Championship. Tom Cleverley said in his press conference today, Ned, he said, "I can assure you that 2 more players will come in before the deadline. Targets he has identified." He also went on to say he has full backing from the football club. I saw you put out a tweet earlier, actually, kind of talking
yeah.
about that. Obviously, promising to hear that we have 2 more players coming in, and we'll discuss some of them rumours later on in the stream today. What did you make of them comments from Tom Cleverley? I'm sure you must have felt reassured, I assume, from them comments.
Yeah, slightly reassured. It's nice for Cleverley to come out and say he feels backed by those above him. That's something that we haven't heard in complete certainty. He said he felt backed by Duxbury, but he to come out and say he now feels backed by the 4 football clubs. Um, really good. As for a couple more players to come in, I feel like it's needed. I was looking, 2 long-term injuries, 5 players have gone out now, and we've only brought in 1 player at the moment. So it's looking like another window where we lose more players than we come in, and the squad is going to suffer if we don't bring more players in. My brother mentioned on the podcast last weekend that he was quietly confident with the volume of players going out that it would force the owner's hand to actually sign some players, and it looks like that's come to happen. I thought it was interesting in that pre-match press conference that Cleverley said like 50% of the business in a club like ours that doesn't have a lot of financial backing is done in the last week, and it feels like we've been linked with every player under the sun. But yeah, those 2 players are needed. I hope. Well, I think we roughly know one. Not too sure of the other, as we'll probably get onto later on in the podcast. But yeah, there are some positions that are definitely earmarked for strengthening, and whether we do that now and try and push on for the rest of the season, or we leave it to the summer, it'll be interesting to see what we do with that.
If you were in Tom Cleverley's shoes, Ned, what two positions would you prioritise in these final few days of the transfer window?
Um, I feel like we do need a central midfielder. Just because of the injury problems and the depth is the issue. I think here when you've got Tom Delibashu partner with Loser, it looked good against Derby. That first 45, we had
Was
almost
that arguably the
complete
best
control.
midfield performance of the season, would you say?
I would say so, yeah. And we all know Kmbe is far better and further forward than in central midfield, and Sissoko, has had questions over him for a couple of months now. So I think we need some depth there, because then when you get through all those players that you're relying on Duomo, and then beneath that it's Ramirez Espan, that's just a youth player at the moment. So I feel like we need to strengthen there, and I guess from my own personal opinion, I feel like we need a striker, um, more so than a winger, because I don't think Bio. I'm not the biggest Bio advocate. I'll be
No.
honest. Obviously, I'll try and support him as much as I can, but I feel like there are better options out there, and not just that, but I feel like he needs the competition as well. It's very easy for him to drop a 5 out of 10 and then be picked, because it's very risky to start Dumbia, and now Barr's injured. There's no one that can sort of fill in that striker role.
Yeah, I was gonna save this question for later in the stream, but as you bring up the striker situation now, Ned, I will ask you, and we kind of discussed this via Twitter DMs yesterday. You're a big advocate of Emmanuel Dennis, Ned.
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to him coming back for a third spell if we get desperate in the final couple of days of the transfer window? Because as it stands, he's not actually played any football since he left us
Mm.
last time. He's stuck at Nottingham Forest, obviously collecting a very nice wage, but he's not playing,
Yeah.
any football. So would you be opposed to making that deal happen?
Obviously, I would always welcome him back, because he's been a great servant to the club when he's been here. Season in the Premier League was excellent. The cameo, with one leg last season, he was quality in patches when he was fit. But fitness is the big thing. Clearly wants players that can come in and hit the ground running, the likes of a Banqua, who can come in and start. We need players for the now, and that's the only caveat to bringing Dennis back. I think it's just he's going to need time, and it kind of links to that the Iheanacho transfer that lots of people are talking about. He's another player that hadn't played. He's not featured since December 14th. Iheanacho, and that's another reason why I wouldn't go for someone like that. Dennis is a little bit different for me. I'm such a big fan of him, but I'm not entirely sure that's the sort of player Cleverley wants at the moment. Maybe in the summer, but not to come in and hit the ground running right now.
Do you read anything into them rumours about Dennis having, a bad attitude at the training ground, unsettling players in the dressing room? Because that's been bandied about by a few people, but we've not seen any substantial
No,
evidence to suggest that is the case.
no, I don't read too much into it, to be honest. I think there was lots of negativity in that dressing room in the Premier League. We had three managers that season. Rarely had much to celebrate that year. I think there would have come a breaking point for many players in that dressing room who just wanted to leave. And, Dennis did leave, but he stayed until, he played in the Championship, and then he came back. I don't think that's the sort of player that hated Watford or was a bad
Mm.
influence. And you do see little snippets here and there of like training, and it seems like he gets on with lots of people, and he's generally a well liked player by a lot of the other players. So I don't tend to read too much into it, but yeah, there could be something in there. But as I said, I think that's more of just a collective atmosphere in that Premier League season.
Melanie here in the chat says Dennis is not fit. We need someone coming in immediately.
Yeah,
That's the tricky thing, Ned, in the January transfer window. You know, if you want a striker to come in and score goals immediately and be match
yeah.
fit, then you're going to be paying either a very high loan fee or a very high transfer fee. And Watford just don't have the money for that at the moment, do we?
No, no, we don't. We don't look like we do. So unless they find some money from somewhere, yeah. Because everyone's always looking for that striker that can come in and save them or save the rest of their season, and it's always January. So those players that are fit and roaring and having a good season are like gold dust. I agree. We need someone to come in and hit the ground running. And it pains me to say this, but I just don't think Dennis is that player. And I know we were linked with Sheriff and Jai. He's playing regular football. It was a ridiculous
Did did
transfer
did you
fee.
see the sitter he missed the other night as well in the
I
Champions League?
did, I did. Yeah, that's a very Watford player if I've ever
Yeah,
seen one. But that sort of mold of play, he's having a good season out in. I think he plays in Serbia, is it?
yeah.
And playing in the Champions League as well. He's scoring a lot of goals. He's playing well. As far as the players we were linked with, he would be the one that could come in and start and someone almost push Bayo out the way and say, I'm playing as the 9. Um, we probably do not have £8 million to spend on a striker, and I don't think those rumours were true. But that's the sort of player that you would want to be looking at. But yeah, I don't think we've got the funds for that.
Well, someone we were rumoured with earlier today, Ned. I woke up, I saw this on my Twitter feed, and I got quite excited actually. And that player is Josh Bowler, obviously at
Mm.
Nottingham Forest. He's on loan at Preston North End this season. He was rumoured with a move to Watford throughout really this morning and early afternoon. And I think Alan Nixon put out a tweet saying that both Luton and Watford were in the race to sign him. There are rumours on the Preston North End forums that he was on his way to Vicarage Road. And then, Ned, a couple of hours later, Luton Town announced the signing of Josh Bowler. Is that a missed opportunity for Watford? Because whilst he's not had the greatest season or so in English football, he is a quality winger on his day, and I believe in my heart that if he did join Watford, Tom Cleverley would have been able to get the best out of him.
Yeah, I think Cleverly so far has got a really good track record of getting the best out of players that either their careers stagnating or their youngsters that have needed time and guidance in their development. And Cleverly so far has done a great job of that. The likes of Loser and Barr and people like that. So there isn't any doubt in my mind that he probably could get the best out of Bowler, but you know it's a difficult one for me. Preston fans didn't like him, didn't have a lot of goal output at Cardiff. Even in his best season up in the Championship with Blackpool, it wasn't. The numbers weren't great over the whole season, and I would just be concerned loaning him in. You, I don't know how much we would get out of him in return. Um, it's a difficult one, but I wasn't I wasn't that excited by that
No.
transfer. I feel like it's more of just we're looking in the market for a winger. That's quite a sensible thing to do. But he's obviously decided to go to Luton, and why you'd want to do that, I don't know.
Stinky place, Ned. We'll see him in the derby in a few
Yeah,
weeks' time.
we'll
And
see.
George here says surely striker has to come in considering it's just Bio and Doumbia currently. I mean, you would assume so, Ned. Tom Cleverley has kind of alluded to that point himself that if Bio gets injured, a lot of the pressure is heaped on an 18-year-old Mamadou Doumbia who is relatively new to the
Mm.
country, the culture, and the league. And for me, putting all that pressure on one player in Doumbia would be the wrong thing to do. But as it stands, Ned, it does seem like Watford are pursuing in the final days a left back and a winger, and definitely not a striker.
Yeah, I feel like Cleverly's got a lot of support for Bio, um, and it's evident with how much he starts him. So I feel like, unfortunately, if we are going to see a lot of Bio in for the rest of the season, um, it does seem like Cleverley does have quite a bit of input. It seems like they bring players to him. They work together with him, Duxbury and Gianluca. They all are collaborating together with the players that they want to bring in. And if there's not a striker in those rumors, I can't see us plucking one out of thin air. Just to touch on Dumbia, we know he's quite raw, but I feel like when he's come on off the bench recently, he has looked like a completely different player to what we saw at the start of the season. Obviously, he's very raw, but he's showing a good improvement in his game. And I saw some people, calling for him to start the next game, which obviously is Norwich. I don't know if I'd start him, but it doesn't fill me with such dread that, if Bio got injured, we'd be left with Jebison, put it that way.
Well, he certainly showed a lot more in his cameo appearances than Jefferson ever did. So yeah, I think as you say, Doumbia seems like a very intelligent footballer. Some of the passes and runs he makes compared to Bio, which I know is a low bar, but even still, he does look like that. Maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, after maybe a loan to a lower league team or abroad, perhaps, that he will develop into a top player. So obviously, Mamadou Doumbia is certainly someone to keep an eye on. Someone who looks to be joining Watford in the next few days, Ned, is Caleb Wiley, who up until yesterday I'd never heard of. He's an American left wing back who was out on loan at Strasbourg this season from Premier League Chelsea. Luca Bendoni, who works for Gianluca Di Marzio, tweeted yesterday that Watford are set to sign him on a loan deal until the end of the season. That's an interesting one. It kind of comes to me as a bit of a surprise, really. Obviously, we had the links with Charlie Taylor, who I was really behind us getting. And then to go from, a proper English left back to kind of a pacey, smaller left wing back, it seems like we've swung from one direction very much to the other. What do you think of that deal, Ned?
Yeah, it's very contrasting between Charlie Taylor and this guy Wiley. Um, I, I'm a bit on the fence about this transfer. Obviously, I'm never going to write a player off before they've kicked a ball, because a lot of people did that of a banker, and he has come in and been okay. He's not been rubbish. It's just the injuries that concern me about Wiley. He's didn't play a lot for Strasbourg on loan. Had 2 separate injuries that were lengthy. Most recently had a shoulder injury. And that's what concerns me. Injury-prone youngster doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. And comparing that to Charlie Taylor, clearly wanted some experienced players to come in that knew the league, knew the style of football in the Championship and the Premier League, and I feel like Charlie Taylor's a good option for that. It's an
Yeah.
experienced head at the back.
He's what I would call, Ned, a Brexit footballer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm obviously never going to write someone off before they've kicked a ball. But I personally, I think I would have gone for Charlie Taylor over Wiley. But maybe when he's not injured, Cleverley can get the best out of him.
It's an interesting discussion point as well, because Charlie Taylor, as we mentioned, would very much suit the back four. Is a standard left back. You know exactly what you're going to get. And obviously Wiley would very much be kind of a Yasser Larouci type player who thrives in that wing back type role. So does this signal to you maybe that Cleverley wants to go back to kind of a 3 centre back, 2 wing back system? Or, is this one of these things where we missed out on Taylor and Wiley is kind of our backup option?
Yeah, I feel like Cleverley's kind of been flirting with back 5, back 4 for most of the season. And when he signed a banker and played him out on the right, I thought that was like an indicator that we were changing. He wanted to switch to that back 4. But yeah, it's interesting to see with Wiley coming in, what Cleverley decides to do. If he does play him at left back, I feel like there is opportunity for them to still get forward. Obviously, not as much as a left or right wing back would do. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. It's not a very good answer for
No.
the stream, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Um, I've not seen any football from Wiley really, so I couldn't tell you the style of player that he is. But if we do play with a back four, at the moment we're looking at Ngaki playing on the left and over Larouci,
Yeah.
which is it is mental given Larouci is he's left-footed. So the only thought process I can think of is that Cleverley is earmarked Wiley as a player that can come in and play in that left back role, is solid defensively and offers something going forward. More so than Larouci.
Before we move on to outgoings, Ned, a quick question here from Josh. Thanks for the question, Josh. He says, thoughts on Ibrahim Sissoko, Plymouth winger, had his loan terminated, and we are apparently one of the few Championship clubs interested. I know he's had quite limited game time over at Plymouth this season. Is that something you would look to entertain, Ned, perhaps?
It's always difficult because those teams towards the bottom end of the Championship, it only tends to be, if there is someone of real quality, they'll stick out massively like a sore thumb. The likes of Sammy Smodics or a Morgan Whittaker that single-handedly carries a team on their back. And Sissoko has had flashes of quality, definitely. Scored, I think he scored against Luton, didn't he, when they beat him
I think so,
3-1?
yeah. I do remember that, actually, yeah.
But I personally wouldn't. He does kind of strike me as another bar type player, and while we are in the market for a winger like that, I'm not sure. Again, it's a bit like Bowler for me. I'm not sure we'd get much output from him. He's young, and if we need someone to come in and be able to create and score off the as a winger, because that's what Bar's been doing all season. I I don't think that this Sissoko guy is going to be, that player. And I worry if we signed another Sissoko, I think my dad would be baffled by two Sissokos
I
playing
was
at
going to
once.
say, is that a commentator's nightmare, Ned?
Oh, it must be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting one. And yeah,
Mm.
I'm not sure where that link has come from, Josh, because I've not seen anything reported myself. But
No, I
obviously, you
haven't.
must have seen an article somewhere. Switching our focus now, Ned, to outgoings. We've seen a couple today, actually. Firstly, in Festi Ebisele, who secured a permanent move from Udinese to Istanbul Başakşehir for a fee of around 4 to 5 million euros. He was recalled from Watford after his injury and has made the move over to Turkey. Are you sad, Ned, that move didn't quite work out? Because for me, Festi Ebisele has all the attributes to be a top quality wing back. And yeah, watching Tom Cleverley's press conference earlier, it does seem like maybe his attitude and focus really was the problem at Watford.
Yeah, I think he definitely has all the natural and physical attributes to be right at the very top. But yeah, as you said, clearly believes that it's about application for Festi and the work ethic and concentration. And if he can work that out, I'm sure Ebiseli will have a great career and be very successful wherever he goes. But if you'd asked me maybe 2 months ago, as I said about the loan being terminated, I'd have been like, oh, that's a real shame. But yeah, recently just didn't look very interested, and the performances were somebody that wanted to be recalled and sent somewhere else. So I'm not too sad about it, but yeah, I just hope for his sake he can crack on with his career and improve as a player.
Absolutely, I echo everything Ned said there, and he's clearly confident in himself as a person to move from the UK over to Italy, back to Watford, and now making that move over to Turkey. So, yeah, we wish Festi Ebisele all the best for the future, and it wouldn't surprise me actually if in 4 or 5 years' time he comes back to Watford to play once again, because that's just
Mm.
what we do as a club. We seem
Yeah,
to bring
yeah,
players back on quite a regular basis.
yeah,
A more sad note now, Ned, in a
yeah.
departure. Ken Sema moving over to sunny Cyprus to join Paphos FC. He
Mm.
agreed a mutual contract termination with Watford. It's a gutting one. It's obviously King Ken. It was clear to see for me anyway that in the past season or two that he'd lost a few yards of pace. He come towards the natural end of his Watford career. Does he go down as a Watford legend for you?
Um, maybe ask me in a few years' time if he's a legend. Definitely like a cult hero. A modern day legend is more of a fitting for a player like Ken Sema. Yeah, it's going to be sad to not have a season with him. You know, popping up with a fantastic goal here and there, and just he was a joy to watch at times. You know, he loved to take people on, loved to flip flap, had a bit of flair about him, very direct. And he had a good bit of end product for him. But yeah, it was quite obvious, especially in the last sort of calendar year or so. It was just a natural tail off in his physical attributes, and they were quite a big part of his style of play. You know, powerful runner, and yeah, he just couldn't do it at this level anymore. But you know, he's been a fantastic servant to the club, the last player from the FA Cup final squad, and yeah, it's going to be sad to see him go. He's been, you know, cleverly said he was a great role model for the younger players, a great professional. There's not enough words really to speak highly enough of Ken Sema. He is someone that, you know, a lot of young kids will look up to, um, and you know it's a shame to see him go, but he's had his day with Watford, and I wish him the very best for the rest of his career.
What a place to go as well, Cyprus, Ned. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't get
very sunny. Yeah,
much nicer than that, can you?
no, you can't. And yeah, he's gone to join another former Watford player, Domingos Kina, who's at Paphos at
Wow,
the
I didn't
moment.
know that. Is that
Yeah,
Paphos? Is he?
he
Wow,
is. Yeah, finally getting some
interesting.
regular football somewhere, which is good for him.
Oh dear, Domingos Quina, what a guy! I
Mm.
remember, was it against Cardiff at Vicarage Road? He scored a decent goal, I
Yeah, he
think,
did.
from
Yeah,
memory. So
yeah, and
yeah,
against Reading away in the Carabao Cup as well. He's another player that didn't quite work out at Watford, but yeah, linking up with Ken Sema, both in the FA Cup squad from who made the final.
didn't Domingos Quina turn up to the Watford training ground on deadline day? I'm sure I remember that. You might be too young, Ned, but I
I
remember he
think I
turned up
might
on
be.
he turned up on deadline day, and I think Adam Leventhal was working for Sky at that time, and he was outside, the Watford training ground, and he said this player just turned up, wanted to move to Watford, and then yeah, in the final hours of the window, they got it done. So yeah, shout out Domingos Quina. Wasn't expecting to
Yeah, there
talk
you
about
go.
him today. So yeah, there we go. Interesting. Um, Ryovic, Ned. I thought
Mm.
I'd mention him today because cleverly spoke about him a few weeks ago, saying they were in discussions to recall him to the club. That would maybe solve our striker option, at least for the short term. It seems like he's gone back out to Brondby and played in their last game. So is there anything in that in the final days, potentially Ryovic coming back, or is that something you'd not like to see happening?
Oh, I think he's, you know, the all of that kind of went really quiet. It was very much like an early transfer window option. I feel like the club were exploring, and obviously he's our player. And if there is an option to recall him, we are having a bit of a striker problem, then it's a natural thing to crop up in conversations about strikers coming into Watford. Um, yeah, I saw he did score in their most recent game, which was a couple of days ago, I think. So I don't think there's anything in him coming back to Watford in January. But I think definitely, you know, he's had a year to develop away from Watford. Very, very raw. in his play as well. He did improve a lot under Ishmael, but it'd be good to see what Cleverley can do with him. And I think maybe next season is the one for Rajovic.
We shall see. Ned, before we started recording, I asked you to think about this question. I'll give my answer, then you can give yours.
Yeah.
If you could pick one Championship player to sign, regardless of budget, of course, because Watford have no money, it seems, who would it be? For me, to solve our defensive midfield issue, I've been a big fan of this player for a very long time. At Blackburn Rovers, Lewis Travis, 27 years old. I think he captains Blackburn as well. He's so tenacious. And for me, every time I play Football Manager, I sign him for Watford. He just seems top class, top quality, reads the game really well. So if I had, let's say £5 to £10 million and Blackburn wanted to accept, that is who I would go after. Ned, have you had a think? Who would you look to sign for Watford if you had millions and millions of pounds at your disposal?
I'm in between two players really. I've kind of gone for the same sort of. It's a midfielder. I think one player just edges it for me, and it would be Gustavo Harmer from Sheffield United.
That's a good shout. That's a good shout.
I think,
tried to steer clear of the top clubs, really, but
yeah, really good player. I think he was actually a big sort of spark for them last season in a torrid Premier League season. He's got a goal about him. Loves an incisive pass. Good player. I would take him in a heartbeat if we had the pulling power and the money.
Who was the other player you said you were considering?
I've actually watching this. I think Enzo Leafy from Sunderland. I've actually been quite a big fan of what I've seen so far.
I think is it Enzo Lefay? Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not too sure.
Lord knows. But yeah, from what I've seen of him so far, he's looked quality. What you'd expect from a player on loan from Syria and with an obligation of 20 million if they get promoted. But yeah, he's looked quality. But I think just for the experience in England, Harmer edges it for me.
Yeah, he reminds me a bit of like Emi Buendia when he was at Norwich in the Championship. Like quite similar players in the way they carried the ball, and obviously Harmer scored, just a few weeks ago at Vicarage Road as well, and what was a very good strike. Anything else you want to mention in regards to outgoings or incomings, Ned, before we touch on Norwich City?
No, I think we covered it over the past couple of weeks. All of the other ones. I'm just hoping we can get a few more bodies over the line. I think I spoke about possibly, about a week ago, looking at least 3 players to come in with the outgoings. And it looks like we are going to get 3 players if everything goes to plan. So that's kind of fulfilled my wish. And whilst it is sort of covering for those who have left, it's bringing us back to zero. We're not losing real quality and not replacing it. So it's whilst it's not been a brilliant window because the support for Cleverley sort of miraculously appeared in the past week. It's I think he's still getting the players he feels he wants. So it's not a complete wreck of a window.
Agreed. So we'll see how that pans out. Of course, the transfer window a little bit different this year. I mean, we're recording this on the 31st of January, but the window doesn't actually close until after this weekend on Monday at 11 p.m. So let's hope Watford can get a few more players through the door. Norwich tomorrow, Ned, at Vicarage Road, a 12:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports Plus. Firstly, are you heading down to Vicarage Road?
I am. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited, and I am in high optimism ahead of that game.
Whereabouts are you sitting tomorrow, Ned?
I will be sitting in the Rookery, so
okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Get behind the boys, bit of atmosphere going.
A bit of I don't care about Gino.
Oh, yeah. possibly. I couldn't comment on that.
Okay. Okay, good stuff. So Norwich City come into Vicarage Road tomorrow. Tom Cleverley spoke today in his pre-match press conference. Jeremy Ngakia, he actually mentioned, had quite severe ankle swelling at half-time in our last championship match. He should be okay to feature, as will Imran Louza, which is great to hear, Ned, because as you spoke about earlier, the Tom Deli Bashiru Imran Louza partnership is so crucial to our midfield and the team's performance really generally, because yeah, if that midfield isn't quite right, as we've seen many times this season, the whole team seems to crumble really. So for you, if Loser is fit to start tomorrow, surely we've got to go, with TDB and Imran in that midfield.
Yeah, that's the partnership I've been looking forward to seeing a lot more of. Ever since Derby, that was the most complete performance from the midfield in months. So hopefully that's what starts tomorrow. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think Tom got about 70 minutes in the last game. He's had a week of training. Everything seems to, still be progressing as fine. There's been no setbacks of note. So I'd be expecting him to play 80 minutes or probably the same 70, 80 minutes tomorrow. And yeah, we kick on from there. But it's really good to have Loser back and Ngakia back, to be honest. Yeah.
For me, I've got a couple of questions actually for you, because I'm not quite sure what's going on with Angelo Ogbonna. He seems to
Mm.
have just disappeared out of the first team in the last couple of months. Really, he's not really featured at all. Especially if Tom Cleverley does stick with this back four system. Can you see Ogbonna coming in alongside someone like Matty Pollock, or why we continue with the way we're playing currently? Is it purely going to be sitting on the bench for Ogbonna, because we've seen obviously he's coming towards the end of his career. He doesn't have the pace he used to have. He'll be much better in kind of the center of a back five. Um, it's an interesting one, because for me, you have to, if that player is available, you've got to get them in the team somehow because of the quality and experience they have.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite weird, isn't it? I feel like if Ogbonna's fit, he's a sort of player that would be one of the earlier names on the team sheet when you're naming it alongside Pollock in a back four. If he does want to persist with a back five, I've been saying this for weeks. My ideal partnership in there would be Ogbonna, Pollock, and Porteous. So we know the qualities that Ogbonna possesses. Yes, he doesn't have a lot of pace, but no one in that back line doesn't, and that's the sort of role of the fullbacks to cover that off. So I can't imagine that's why he's not being picked. Obviously, we don't know what's going on in the background, but yeah, it's a frustrating one for me, because I know he's an aging player, but you expect to get more out of him. Just give him more minutes, to be honest. I know he's been injured for a while, but yeah, ever since he's come back from injury, his minutes have been few and far between. So it'd be interesting to see what Cleverley does tomorrow. Back four, back five, whether we include Ogbonna or not, I couldn't tell you, but yeah, I would definitely be in support of him playing in a back four or a back five. Yeah, I'm not really sure why he's not being picked.
I'm not sure when his last appearance was. From my memory, was it the FA Cup game at Fulham? Didn't he start?
Yeah, he definitely played in that. I can't think if he is featured since off the top of my head. But yeah, he seemed to look all right in that game. The whole team fell apart in the second half, so you can't blame that on him entirely. But yeah, he looked solid in that.
The big question for tomorrow, our new goalkeeper, Egil Selvik. Obviously, we've seen him in training today. I think Watford published a short interview with him on social media as well. His English is superb, by the way. Does he start for Watford tomorrow over Jonathan Bond? Tom Cleverley, again, I have to allude to his press conference. He said that he didn't want to be too harsh on Jonathan Bond. But for me, if Selvik is available and he feels ready
Yeah,
to go, I'd throw him, straight into championship action.
yeah, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. I know Tom said that Jonathan Bond has never let anyone down, but he's signed to Watford to be a backup goalkeeper. He knows what he's in. He knows what he's in for. If there's a number one that's been signed to come in, Jonathan Bond is experienced enough, and I'm mature enough as a professional to look at that and go, you know what? Yeah, I can understand the situation that I'm in. Yeah, I've had my chance to play for Watford again, but if he's fit and available and he's ready to go, he feels ready, he understands the system, then I cannot see why he would be on the bench. If you get what I mean, if he's not available, then okay. But I can't understand why he would sit, the new goalkeeper on the bench and start Bond.
I think someone asked a question earlier. I think, here we go. Richard Lambden asked a question. I suspect Miles Roberts will go out on loan now that Selvik has joined. Can you see that happening in the next few days? And do you think he'll go back up to Partick Thistle, or maybe, a League One club perhaps?
Yeah, there was speculation, wasn't there, about going back on loan to Scotland. Yes, absolutely, I would loan him back out. It's why, in my opinion, we brought a new goalkeeper in. As much as anything else, we needed one. But if we didn't bring a goalkeeper in, we're relying on Jonathan Bond, and we're also preventing the development of another young talent. And I say young talent because Miles Roberts is talented, like really talented, and he has the potential in future years to go on and play for Watford. In my opinion, from what I've seen of him out on loan, he has to go out and play first team football somewhere. It's not going to do him any good to sit on the bench behind someone else. So yeah, 100% I would send him out on loan. As for anyone else, I'm not sure if there's anyone else I would send out. I think we've kind of sent out as many people as we physically can without having
Yeah.
a threadbare squad. So I'm not sure what you think about that, James. But yeah, other than Miles Roberts, I think I would leave the outgoings as they are.
Well, there's lots of players I'd like to get rid of, but we
Yeah,
can't afford to now. As you alluded to, numerous times during today's stream, we are short for numbers in most positions, I would
yeah,
say, at the moment. So yeah, even players like Sissoko and Bayo, who I don't really want to be here, they've got to
mm.
be around to,
Oh, yeah,
to have.
yeah,
We've got to have bodies in the building ultimately at the end of the day. So yeah, there's not, from the top of my head, anyone I would like to get rid of now. I think Sema going makes sense. Festi after his injury, and clearly he wasn't quite settled here. That makes sense. Him going to a new club as well. So yeah, I think the summer is clearly where we'll see the major departures. Georgie Chapfatatse will most definitely leave.
yeah,
Daniel Batman will be one to watch as well in the summer, because we've clearly signed a new first team goalkeeper, and whether he'll want to stay and compete for his place is going to be up to him. And yeah, Kwadwo Bar, Rocco Vata, all these players are high value players. Matty Pollock can be thrown in there as well. And
yeah.
given Watford's current financial situation, I wouldn't be surprised to see, two or three of them leave. So we'll have to see what happens. Score prediction, Ned, tomorrow you're in the rookery, you want to see some goals.
Mm.
Give me a high scoring prediction.
I am going to say 3-2 to Watford, and I can guarantee Josh Sargent will score for Norwich
Oh,
tomorrow.
what an irritating player. He's so
Yeah,
irritating. Every time he plays, he
irritatingly good.
scores.
Yeah, irritatingly good. I can 100% see him score him, but yeah, I think we'll bounce back tomorrow. 3-2 Watford.
I think that would be the same result we saw at Vicarage Road last season. If you remember, I think
Mm.
Watford went 2 goals down, and then I think Rajvic scored. I think
Yeah,
Kone may have scored as well. I can't
yeah,
quite remember, but yeah, we ended up winning that game last
yeah.
year at Vicarage Road. So Ned's going for a repeat. I'm gonna go with a. I think Norwich will score. They scored, what was it, 5 goals in their last game.
They're
So
always going to score. Yeah, that was my thinking.
no ball has signs though, Ned, which is
That's
always
good
good.
for us. Yeah, very
It
good.
is. Um, it's a hard one. I'll go 2-1 Watford, and I'll go with the Crow and Vata to score.
Mm.
So yeah, those are. That's my prediction. That's Ned's prediction. Get your predictions in the live chat as well. And we've come to the end of our stream today. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Ned has joined us today from the Yellow Squared podcast. We talked about it last week, Ned.
Mm.
Where can everyone find you on socials, and what is your podcast about?
So yeah, the Yellow Squared podcast. It's a show with myself and my brother. You can find us on all audio platforms. We're an audio only podcast at the moment. So anywhere you get your podcasts from, we will be on there. And we are on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, of course, Twitter,
Yes.
where you would find everyone else. So come chat to us. We're always looking for new segments, what to talk about on the podcast. You know, anything you want us to talk about, please drop us a message. We'll always try and fit it in. And yeah, we're having a good year this year. The podcast is in its third season, so we are becoming more established. We don't feel like the new boys as much anymore on the scene. But yeah, it's been a fun year, and we're looking forward to seeing out the third season.
Lovely stuff. Melanie's gone 2-1 or 2-0. Josh has gone 1-0. You Orns. VJ says 3-0. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I wish I had your optimism, VJ.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, let's hope Watford pick up the 3 points tomorrow. Ned, it's a difficult run coming up, so we've got to get behind Clevs, the players, and yeah, hopefully it's a good atmosphere at Vicarage Road. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.